Former Attorney General Bill Barr says that the charges that have been brought against him are, quote unquote, responsible. Do you agree?
Well, I'm not an attorney. There's 91 charges, I think. I think the charge that seems most likely, seems almost a slam dunk, is the one related to mishandling of classified documents. If that is proven, then we may have a candidate for president who has been convicted of a crime. I think Joe Biden needs to be replaced, but I don't think Americans will vote for someone who's been convicted. I'm just very sorry about how all this is playing out.
Do you think that Donald Trump should drop out of the race?
I think so.
Oh, that's gonna hurt!
So if you're looking for the prime example of the modern day Republican Party, look no further than Senator Bill Cassidy, who over the weekend took to CNN to announce firstly that he believes Trump should drop out.
Do you think that Donald Trump should drop out of the race?
I think so, but obviously that's up to him. You're just asking my opinion, but he will lose to Joe Biden if you look at the current polls.
Only to then, in almost the very next breath, say he'd still vote for him anyway.
Well, I'm not an attorney. There's 91 charges, I think. I think the charge that seems most likely, seems almost a slam dunk, is the one related to mishandling of classified documents. I can't comment on the rest of them because apparently you have to prove state of mind. You'll have attorneys after me that can comment on that. But there's at least one, which is the mishandling of the federal documents, which seems, again, a very strong case. They have a tape recording of him speaking of it. If that is proven, then we may have a candidate for president who has been convicted of a crime. I think Joe Biden needs to be replaced, but I don't think Americans will vote for someone who's been convicted. I'm just very sorry about how all this is playing out.
Do you think that Donald Trump should drop out of the race?
I think so, but obviously that's up to him. You're just asking my opinion, but he will lose to Joe Biden if you look at the current polls. I'm a Republican. I think any Republican on that stage in Milwaukee will do a better job than Joe Biden, and so I want one of them to win. If former President Trump ends up getting the nomination but cannot win a general, that means we'll have 4 more years of policies which have led to very high inflation, to a loss of purchasing power for the average American equivalent to $10,000, and to many other things which I think have been deleterious to our country's future.
So if Donald Trump does ultimately win the Republican nomination, will you vote for Joe Biden or the Democrat over the Republican on the ticket?
I'm going to vote for a Republican, but my threshold issue for any person who wants to be the leader of our country is, will you take care of the issues before us? Both Biden and Trump both have the same policy on Social Security, for example, which is to do nothing. Unfortunately, Social Security is going insolvent in 8 to 9 years, which means that somebody watching this who's getting Social Security is going to get a 24% cut.
Demonstrating that while there appears to be 2 types of Republicans out there, those who swear blind allegiance to their cult leader,
he's being indicted for saying the election was stolen. You know who else said the election was stolen? Hillary Clinton said the election was stolen. And then everybody parroted her talking points. Stacey Abrams said her election was stolen as running for governor here in Georgia. And then everybody parroted her talking points.
and those who, quote, oppose him up until he's the nominee, and that hollow spine that they like to show off on air dwindles into the ether. Think about it. Mitch McConnell stated this very thing in front of a live audience. Remember when he was pressed by then Axios, now New York Times journalist Jonathan Swan, and he admitted to the reality that there is no low too low when it comes to a Republican candidate while they remain their best chance at winning.
For playing a ruthless style of politics, where do you draw your moral red lines?
I didn't realize I was known for playing a ruthless. I thought my wife thinks I'm a really nice guy. My kids like me. I got a lot of friends.
That's 4 so far, okay.
I'm shocked to hear such a comment.
Let's just take as a premise, and I think the audience might agree with me, that there are some people, maybe some substantial people in this country who might agree with that assertion.
I'm sure you could find
So
some
moral red lines, where do you draw them?
I'm perfectly comfortable with the way I have conducted my political career, and I'd be happy to respond to any specificity you want to apply to the term. What was it?
Moral red lines.
Moral red line. Yeah.
Well, I'm
very comfortable with my moral red line.
Let me give you one specific. Help me understand this. I watched your speech last year in February on the Senate floor after the second impeachment vote on Donald Trump. And it was an extraordinary speech. You spoke very powerfully against the most powerful figure in your party, the president. And you said Donald Trump's actions preceding the January 6th insurrection were a, quote, disgraceful dereliction of duty, and that he was practically and morally responsible, your words, for provoking the events of that day. How do you go from saying that to 2 weeks later saying you'd absolutely support Donald Trump if he's the Republican nominee in 2024?
Well, as the Republican leader of the Senate, it should not be a front-page headline that I will support the Republican nominee for president.
After you've said that about him, I think it's astonishing.
I think I have an obligation to support the nominee of my party. And
is there anything they could do?
I will. That will mean that whoever the nominee is has gone out and earned the nomination.
Okay, but Donald Trump earned it last time, and I'm just trying to understand, what you say matters. You're a very important voice in this country. You're the leader of your party, and you seem to hold two concurrent, conflicted positions, which is
not at all inconsistent. Not at all inconsistent. I stand by everything I said on
I understand, but
January 6th and everything I said on February the 13th.
I understand that, but what I want to understand, which I haven't heard you address, is
because I don't get to pick the Republican nominee for president. They're elected by the Republican voters all over the country.
I fully understand that, but take Liz Cheney, for example.
You want to spend some more time on this as well?
I actually do, because I actually, I genuinely want to understand this. I really want to understand how you think about this, because Liz Cheney, who has the same view of you as of January 6th, she said she doesn't want Donald Trump anywhere near the White House, and she's going to work to not make that happen, because she thinks that there are some things more important than party loyalty.
Well, maybe you ought to be talking to Liz Cheney.
No, but I'm not trying to, I really, it's not a gotcha. I'm just actually trying to understand, is there any threshold for you of what someone could do on a moral level?
I say many things I'm sure people don't understand.
I mean, you see this across the board with Mike Pence.
I was clear on that throughout. I was clear with President Trump throughout, all the way up to the morning of January 6th. But let's be clear on this point. It wasn't just that they asked for a pause. The president specifically asked me, and his gaggle of crackpot lawyers asked me to literally reject votes, which would have resulted in the issue being turned over to the House of Representatives, and literally chaos would have ensued. So, Martha, people can read the indictment, and frankly, I've said before, I had hoped it had not come to this point.
Bill Barr.
You say Trump's alleged conduct is indefensible. So many Republicans continue to defend him. What will it say if the party, your longtime party, puts him forward as their nominee?
Well, that's the problem. I don't think they're actually defending his conduct, but they are saying it's unfair to prosecute him. But that then raises another question. Okay, if it's unfair to prosecute him, that's not the whole answer. The question is, should we be putting someone like this forward as the leader of the country, leader of the free world, who is engaged in this kind of conduct? The other thing is, this is not just an isolated example. Trump has many good qualities, and he accomplished some good things. But the fact of the matter is, he is a consummate narcissist, and he constantly engages in reckless conduct that puts his political followers at risk, and the conservative and Republican agenda at risk.
Would he put the country at risk if he was in the White House again?
He will always put his own interests and gratifying his own ego ahead of everything else, including the country's interests. There's no question about it. This is a perfect example of that. He's like a defiant 9-year-old kid who's always pushing the glass toward the edge of the table, defying his parents to stop him from doing it. It's a means of self-assertion and exerting his dominance over other people. And he's a very petty individual who will always put his interests ahead of the country's, his personal gratification of his ego. But our country can't be a therapy session for, a troubled man like this.
In countless prominent Republicans who lounge on their moral high ground amidst uncertainty, but come 2024, we'll see how quickly they get behind the quad-indicted, thrice-married, liable of sexual assault GOP frontrunner.
So if Donald Trump does ultimately win the Republican nomination, will you vote for Joe Biden or the Democrat over the Republican on the ticket?
I'm going to vote for a Republican.
Hey, Midas Mighty, love this report? Continue the conversation by following us on Instagram @MeidasTouch to keep up with the most important news of the day. What are you waiting for? Follow us now.